How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? We are now less than 6 weeks away from the start of the NBA season. Yes, I'm counting. And of course, with the season comes with that all kinds of predictions, takes, and projections for how we think the season is going to transpire. But you know what's also fun is looking back at maybe some of our more embarrassing takes, predictions, or just general things about our Bulls fandom that we are embarrassed or too embarrassed to admit of something that has happened in the past. So I recently asked all of you this on Twitter as well as on the YouTube community page. What are your too embarrassed to admit moments, takes, opinions in the history of your Bulls fandom? And that I will be putting together a video compiling your responses, and that's what we'll be discussing in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central. Hope you're all doing well. Just a reminder, if you want to be included in the 30K giveaway, in which I'll be giving 3 winners their choice of Bulls tickets or a jersey, then be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can be entered into the drawing. And once the channel hits 30K subs, I will close that drawing and be selecting 3 winners. But anyway, let's get into some of these moments that you guys had shared with me, and I actually received a lot of great responses from you all. You know, right now, because we're waiting for the start of the training camp, there isn't a ton happening as it relates to trades, free agency signings, etc. So in these instances, I like hearing from you guys, getting you guys involved with the channel, similar to how I do the Bulls hot takes, which it's been a while since I've done those. I need to get those started back up again. Leave your hot takes in the comments and I'll do a video on that shortly. But anyway, I got a lot of responses and I'll try to cover as many as I can. And let's start with this one from Alejandro D. I swore Jabari Parker and Chris Dunn were going to take the Bulls to the playoffs and be the future for the next 5+ years. Oh man, I mean, I'll admit myself, I was actually high on Chris Dunn. I actually thought that in the right role, he was going to develop into a nice player. And people forget, in his first season with the Bulls, his sophomore season, he was selected to the Rising Stars game along with Lauri Markkanen. And whenever Dunn was injured and out of the lineup, which was part of the problem for why he didn't succeed in the NBA, the Bulls really struggled without him and his defense and playmaking. Not saying his playmaking was elite by any means, but on that really bad rebuilding team, he was really the only competent playmaker. But Jabari Parker, yeah, I was never a fan of that signing. I mean, it was a pretty low-risk signing in that they gave him a 2-year contract with a team option on the second year, so effectively a 1-year contract they could control if things didn't work out. But yeah, that was just a reach by the front office to try and bring in a Chicago native to get fans excited, and it completely backfired, where by mid-season, Parker was already out of the rotation and then ultimately was traded by the deadline. So yeah, these guys taking the Bulls to the playoffs and being the future for the next 5+ years, yeah, that's a reach, but honestly, it's not as bad as some of these other ones. The next one comes to us from No Limit J7. Too embarrassed to admit when I used to think Lauri Markkanen would be better than Jason Tatum. I mean, I think for a lot of Bulls fans, we thought Markkanen was going to be way better than maybe his true ceiling was. Now, he's still young. He could end up becoming better than what we see now, but it's more likely that he's going to be nothing more than a role player. There just are too many aspects to his game that you would have thought would have improved by now that he just simply hasn't improved on. But after his rookie season, I mean, there was an argument in a hypothetical redraft that he could have been selected 2 or 3 when you look at how he showed up relative to his draft class. But yeah, I would have never pegged him to become better than Jason Tatum. I mean, right away in his rookie season, you could tell this guy was going to be a legit star in the league. He didn't win Rookie of the Year because Ben Simmons did after, being out his whole rookie season due to injury. But Tatum has just been so good on so many levels. I don't think I ever saw any of that kind of ceiling for Markkanen, even at his best. Next, we've got a couple here because they both relate to the same player. We've got Jordan, too embarrassed to admit that I swore Denzel Valentine was going to be a star in the NBA. And then we've also got Starboy. I was hyped when Denzel Valentine hit the game winner in Summer League and believe that he'll be a star in the NBA. Now, you guys know Valentine is one of my least favorite players, probably of all time. It was the biggest head scratcher for me when AK, as one of his first moves aside from firing Jim Boylan, was extending Valentine a qualifying offer to remain with the team as a restricted free agent, but letting Chris Dunn go. Dunn was probably the right call because he has since obviously fallen out of the league, and I think they realized their mistake when they let Valentine walk after his 1-year qualifying offer. But look, I won't give people a hard time for getting hyped about Valentine. We all saw him in that summer league. He balled out, played with a ton of confidence, and there was a period where even I myself even thought, hey, the Bulls might have picked up a steal in the draft to get him at number 14. But that's where we all need to be reminded there is a reason why Summer League means nothing. And although Valentine played with the same level of confidence we saw in Summer League, that overconfidence backfired for the Bulls on so many occasions. But it did give us the classic, oh my goodness, Valentine call from Adam Amin when Denzel thought that he was Steph Curry for a night on a heat check and proceeded to airball the shot. But anyway, Denzel being a star in the league Oof, yeah, that's a tough one. I would be too embarrassed to admit, that's for sure. Next, we've got flaminturtle. I am heavily embarrassed to admit that before LeBron's decision, I bought a Bulls jersey, can't remember the player, and made a rather crappy custom LeBron James jersey out of it, thinking he was for sure coming to Chicago. I remember wearing it during the special for good luck and becoming devastated when he chose South Beach over the Windy City. Sad times. I mean, well, first of all, man, you know that you can buy custom jerseys where you can put whatever name and whatever number you want. But anyway, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, and this probably is another thing that I'm often too embarrassed to admit as a Bulls fan, like you, I really wanted LeBron to join the Bulls in 2010. I know a lot of Bulls fans hated LeBron, but no, I was all for LeBron coming to Chicago. So much so that I started a Facebook group. Yes, this was back when Facebook was the social media platform of choice. I started a Facebook group about advocating for LeBron James to come to Chicago. Like, no joke, I did the whole Photoshop jersey for him in a Bulls uniform. I recruited other Bulls fans to the group. Not that this group was really going to do anything in swaying LeBron in his decision, but the point is I can relate to this because I watched that decision broadcast live, hoping there was an outside chance he would join Chicago, and was actually pretty upset when he didn't. I feel like a lot of Bulls fans won't admit that because there's always been this perception that Bulls fans hate LeBron. And I don't like LeBron necessarily, I especially can't stand his antics, but LeBron coming to Chicago when he was 26, yeah, I was all for that. And I think we all know the Bulls with LeBron and Rose would have won multiple titles. Wasn't meant to be, though, at the end of the day. Next, we've got Pat Williams, pillsaleem, which, by the way, Saleem is also a fellow content creator, a great podcaster for the Bulls Gold podcast. Make sure you check out his work. I'll actually leave a link to his pod in the description in case you're interested. But Saleem says, I was convinced the Bulls were going to make the playoffs in 2003-04 when Pippen came back and he teach the baby Bulls how to be winners. Instead, they only won 23 games. Ironically, the same number of games Scottie played that season. Man, I mean, it's funny because in my too embarrassed to admit moment as a Bulls fan and how I sort of fell off as a fan and stopped watching around 2001 because the Bulls were so bad until around 2004 is when I started picking it back up again. And part of it was because Scottie Pippen was returning. Granted, I was in high school at the time, so I didn't have as good of a grasp of the game and the business side as I do now. But because the Bulls were bringing back one of their legends, a player that was part of my childhood, I was also of the mindset that they were going to be good again, finally, after all of these years of being a lottery team since 98. But as you said, Saleem, we all saw what happened. The Bulls were still bad, and Scottie barely played, not really having much of an impact on or off the court. Next, we've got tsycashmoney, another person you should give a follow on Twitter. She's a very knowledgeable basketball fan and a big Bulls fan. Even though one time she tried to convince me that Coby White was better than Buddy Hield, but we'll save that for another day. Betsy says, too embarrassed to admit, when I was a kid, I was legit excited for Tyrese Thomas, the trade anyway, and the Carlos Boozer signing. Like, embarrassingly excited. I really thought those deals were the final piece. I mean, we've all been there, thinking a certain player was just the piece that we needed in getting the Bulls over the hump and contending for a title. Tyrese Thomas, though, that's an odd one because while, yes, the Bulls traded down to get the guy that they wanted, which got them another asset, the fact of the matter is I still never saw the potential the front office saw in Thomas, especially when LaMarcus Aldridge was such a highly touted prospect. Yes, Thomas was a bit more flashy, more athletic, was quick in getting the basket, but LaMarcus Aldridge was such a beast as a power forward in college. And of course, it translated into the pros as LMA went on to become a 7-time All-Star and 5-time All-NBA player. And I guess I also just don't see how Tyrese Thomas in that trade deal was the final piece because the Bulls were still pretty bad at that time. I mean, it's why they had the number 2 overall pick. This was obviously before they drafted Rose and Noah. So I don't see how Thomas was that final piece, but I know you said you were a kid, so I get it. As kids, we all thought, our teams were headed for glory because of one player getting there. But Carlos Boozer, on the other hand, that's a little bit different because at the time the Bulls were on the up and up. Rose was ascending to stardom. Noah was going into his prime. Luol Deng was great for that team. They really just needed that additional star player, another strong scorer outside of just Derrick Rose. And to be fair, Boozer was supposed to be that. Like, as much as people like to hate on that signing because we didn't get the prize free agents that everyone was hoping for in LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, Boozer was still a 20-10 machine before he joined the Bulls. So that signing kind of was expected to be that final piece that the Bulls really needed to get them to a title. And it wasn't far off either. Like, the Bulls finished with the best record in the league the following season, not saying that was all because of Boozer, but they were a contending team until, of course, Rose tore his ACL. So I don't fault you too much for that one about getting excited about Boozer. I wasn't too excited about Boozer necessarily because I really did think the Bulls had a legit shot at LeBron. They didn't get him, but also I did like Boozer as a player before he started falling off after he joined the team, of course. Next, we've got Fabio Enchilada. I thought D Wade in the Butler season would win a chip against the Warriors. Sue me, I was like 12. I mean, we all get a pass for these too embarrassed to admit moments when we were kids, right? I mean, by this time, after the Bulls had traded Rose and let Noah walk in free agency, as well as Paul Gasol, they let him walk in free agency. I didn't really know what to think of that team. I liked the idea of bringing D Wade because it added some fanfare to the team, added some hype to the Bulls, and I thought it would be a good piece to keep Jimmy happy, until of course it wasn't. The team crashed and burned under Hoiberg, made the playoffs but got bounced in the first round. I don't see how anyone would have thought that the Bulls would win the title over the KD era Warriors, but again, you were 12, we've been there. Next, we've got the league. I am woefully ashamed to admit that I wanted the Bulls to draft Michael Beasley over Derrick Rose. I quickly changed my tune once he hit the ground running, but yeah, I also wanted to sign Nate Robinson for multiple seasons. Damn. I mean, that is something I don't think anyone would ever want to admit as a Bulls fan, not just because clearly Rose was the better player, it was the right selection even regardless of Rose's injuries, because Beasley never really amounted to much in the NBA, but more so because the city of Chicago was dying to get the hometown kid in Rose, and I don't know many Bulls fans who actually wanted Michael Beasley over him. I like it though because this is one of those truly I'm too embarrassed to admit moments. Beasley did look like an incredible prospect though. Like, there was a reason a lot of mock drafts had him as the #1 pick, and honestly, had the Bulls not gotten lucky and got the #1 pick, it's possible Beasley would have gone #1 because other teams weren't going to care about Rose and where he was from like the Bulls did. Next, we've got Panagoitis Zatsos. I am too embarrassed to admit that when I started watching basketball in general and decided to support the Chicago Bulls, I honestly did not know that MJ, Pippen, and Rodman played there. Oh, come on now. There's no way this is real. I mean, unless you're really young, I'm talking born post-2008, that you would not know that Michael Jordan played for the Bulls. Like, maybe you wouldn't know Pippen or Rodman and that they played for the Bulls, but no, actually, even that is a stretch. Like, Michael and Pippen, those two players are synonymous with the Chicago Bulls. Nah, there's no way. I don't believe this one at all. Next, we've got Marcus Lordy. Too embarrassed to admit that I thought last year's team wouldn't even make the play-in. Interesting. Is this Tim Bontemps burner account? No, I'm kidding. Hey, I mean, there were a lot of people who doubted the Bulls last season, a lot of people who questioned their fit, their offseason signings, and based on how the Eastern Conference was stacked up, yeah, there were people who legit thought they might not even make the play-in. Of course, the Bulls didn't have to even qualify for the play-in as they finished with the 6th seed, but as a Bulls fan, I don't know too many that were actually that low on the team that thought they were going to miss the play-in, so that's a pretty big thing to admit. Next, we've got K-Nection. Too embarrassed to admit me projecting Elton Brand was going to bring us another ring in 5 years after he was drafted. To be fair, I was 13 and watching my team win 6 rings growing up, as the Bulls do, and they could do no wrong in my eyes. Well, you and I must be the same age because I think I was about 13 when the Bulls drafted Elton Brand with the #1 overall pick, and I don't know if I thought that Brand was going to be the next superstar to bring the Bulls a ring, but I did think he was going to be a star in the NBA, which he did become, by the way. Not a superstar, but he was a great NBA player, won Rookie of the Year, and had the Bulls not made that boneheaded decision to trade him after just 2 seasons with the team to go after Tyson Chandler and Eddie Curry, I believe it was, he likely would have been a good piece that the Bulls could have built a team around, but hey, we've kind of come to expect boneheaded moves made by the Bulls front office over the years. Anyway, guys, I'm going to end it there. Apologies if I wasn't able to get to yours. I might do another one of these sometime in the future. I'll try to get back to the hot take series, especially now that we're getting closer to the season. So leave your hot takes in the comments. And guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.